everybody, Master ET here, checking in with Awaken Within, and let's jump right in. Let's talk about just recapping of the last video, and we were talking about you become your environment. You become what you download in the subconscious mind. It's always working full time, all the time in the background. So whether you're paying attention or not, okay, it is going into your mind and it is changing things. Now, when you put environment in there as well, that becomes even more powerful. And then with emotions and feelings, boy, that is the recipe of either disaster or success. It depends what you're downloading in the subconscious mind. So the environment is important, and we've been talking about that at a more of a higher level in also some of the reels and shorts that I've been putting out there. So it's just the way it is, right? I'm Italian. There's nothing about me is French, unfortunately. So respect to the Canadian French people for sure. But the next thing I'm going to talk about is also a short story about environment, and see what you think about this. Now, at one time I was working for Anchor Recovery Center, which was part of the Providence Center. And that's where I first started to really get involved with recovery coaching. And one of my jobs was to teach recovery classes to the inmates at the ACI, the Adult Correctional Institute Prison of Rhode Island. And I visited there 3-4 times a week for 2 hours a session. And I prepared the inmates with knowledge of recovery, staying sober, and setting them up for success when they were released from prison. And before you get any ideas, everything was fine. There was nothing negative going on there. I actually had a great time with it. It was a great experience. But I have to tell you this, it was a different environment for sure. It's prison. All right. So I don't know, some of it could have been consciously I did this, but a lot of it was subconscious. And what I mean is that I may have consciously made a decision to put on a certain facade, all right, to make sure that I was going to be a little rough around the edges, because I wasn't going to look like I was going to be a pushover, just in case anyone thought that I was going to be, right? And so I put on that little show. So some of it, was probably me. But I have to say, for the most part, it was subconsciously. What I'm really getting at is that after about close to a year teaching that, I taught about 3 years. After about a year teaching at minimum and medium security of the prison, and at the time my wife was saying, gee, you're starting to get an edge to you. Gee, you're starting to sound a little rough around the edges. Gee, you're starting to use terminology that I never heard you say before. Gee, you got a little swearing a little bit more than usual, when you get upset. And that was my environment, I think, I put that maybe facade on a little bit, like I said, to make sure I had that hardened shell there, but I really think most of it was just listening to the inmates, talking to the inmates, hanging out with the inmates 4 times a week, teaching the inmates or whatever, right? Talking to the COs, the correctional officers, and you can see why that they'll get hardened, right? They'll change. They're downloading that stuff all day long, right? They're in that environment all the time. There's not much difference between the person that is in there for 3, 10, 20 years, God forbid, and then them working in there. They get a chance to go home, but they're in there 8, 12 hours a day, whatever it is, right? So again, lesson learned, the environment. And, of course, I brushed it off, and I said, no. But, looking down there, looking down the lane here now, looking back, it was doing that to me. So, again, environment. All right, again, put emotions in there, feelings in there. It's a recipe, right? It could be a recipe for disaster or for success, right? Let's bring it up a little bit now. The next part of this video is about also going back when I was a child. Now, I had a great childhood. Pretty much, right? Not perfect, but pretty much it was great. The whole Italian thing that I just told you about, right? But there was another side of that, which wasn't maybe as positive. And what I'm getting at is that, my father would love to go to the men's bars, the social clubs. Now, some of you that are a little younger, you may not even know what those are. Those are social clubs, men's bar rooms, they used to call them. And there was no woman allowed, believe it or not. And men just hung out and they drank. Right? And it was a big Italian thing, but it was just every bar room you can possibly think of. They would call it any nationality. I won't use names, but, I was exposed to every bar room you can think of from Barring to Bristol, right? That's what my father did. He worked hard and liked to go out and have his Narragansett beers. Unfortunately, it caught up to him too, and he struggled, and, he had an issue with alcoholism as well, but he also, died when he passed away. He died sober. He was sober for many years, which is so cool, right? And but think about this now in my environment, right? Every time I hung out with my father, we hung out at a bar a lot of times. Anytime that we went to go do something like fishing or something like that, we would go to the bar. Let's go to the bar. Let's go here. I'm going to stop at the bar. And, I lived in the bars when I was younger, right? I spun around in that little red bar stool. I hung around with all those guys. A lot of them were Italians, right? They were teaching me how to play pool, roll dice, right? Listening to them swearing in Italian, right? Buying me potato chips, popcorn, all of that. It was I thought it was the coolest thing. I'm with the guys, I'm with the men, right? My father had all the little Narragansetts lined up and the shots next to it, and I had my little Coca-Colas. What's happening here, right? What do you think is going on? I'm enjoying this. Now you put the emotions of going, wow, this is cool. I like this. Matter of fact, I would tell my dad, hey, Dad, let's go to the bar, and that's kind of sad, right? And I just love that environment. And by the time I was 12 or 13, I couldn't wait until I was 18 to go to the bar. I loved it. It was so much fun and stuff like that. And there was a lot of things that I downloaded and that I was listening to. I didn't realize that it wasn't really a good lifestyle either for a lot of those guys as well. But that's what we did. The other side of that part of it also, unfortunately, was, my dad coming home and some arguments with my mom because of drinking too much. And again, picture this. I'm laying in bed, right? That I have to, I have to go to school the next day, and I'm listening to these arguments going on back and forth, and all of that, and I would be scared to death, thinking that, Mom, what's going to happen, right? You can only imagine, right? And I'm telling you some personal stuff here, but nothing. There was no abuse, there was no physical stuff. It was just arguing. But for me at that age, it sounded pretty bad to me. So that's just an idea, and I'm sure some of you could relate to some of this or identify with this, but you can just get an idea of environment, how powerful it is, right? Especially at an early age. Usually from, again, I'm guessing, and again, I always forget these numbers, but for anywhere from 4 or 6 years old to about 9 or 10, you're at that theta frequency, right? Where you can kind of almost the subconscious mind is open to everything, and it can get downloaded so easily, all right? Almost as if that you're at that hypnotic state, right? And you're taking all that in, right? And it's pretty wild. And obviously, it didn't do well for me, right? Because once I hit 18, even though I was training and all that stuff, I couldn't wait to get to the bars. And unfortunately, the drinking age started at 18, right? And then all bets were off. Train hard, teach hard, drink hard. And that's what I did, and that's how I was brought up. And no offense to my dad. Matter of fact, my dad is here right now telling the story with me. And I hope that you got something out of this, and pay attention to your environment and your child's environment. You can see why it's against the law now to bring, a child to a bar and have them sit at a bar, even at a restaurant. So I hope we learn from this, and I will be seeing you soon on the next video. Have a great day.